the equipment requisition.
Standard training package, but it includes several specialized items. You do not have the authority to purchase these items.
They humiliated her in front of everyone, then learned she saved the general's son. LRA Valkyrie walked into Camp Meridian Supply Depot at 0800 on Friday morning, her weathered military jacket drawing snickers from 3 young captains who saw only outdated gear, not the classified operations it had survived. In 20 minutes, General Hawthorne's arrival would silence their mockery with recognition that changed everything. Valkyrie 35 operates under deep cover with credentials so classified that her real name doesn't appear in any official records. Her faded jacket tells stories of missions that never happened in places that don't exist, saving people who can't be acknowledged by governments that officially never sent her there. What happened during routine equipment pickup would expose how elite military officers could fail to recognize the most dangerous operative standing right in front of them, and how one general's memory would reveal heroism that deserved honor but required secrecy. Camp Meridian, a classified military installation that doesn't appear on official maps, serving as staging area for operations that require complete deniability. The facility hosts elite special operations units, intelligence operatives, and military personnel whose missions exist in gray areas between diplomacy and warfare. The base environment operates on need-to-know protocols, where most personnel don't understand the full scope of operations they support. Young officers fresh from conventional military training often lack context for recognizing operatives whose appearance and behavior don't match traditional military standards. Recent security protocols have created additional layers of anonymity for deep cover operatives like Valkyrie, whose cover identities must remain intact even among military personnel who share the same facilities. This compartmentalization creates environments where heroes remain unrecognized by colleagues who benefit from their protection. The setting represents the shadow world where America's most dangerous missions are planned and executed by people who can never receive public recognition for their service or sacrifice. Valkyrie's recruitment into classified operations began after her conventional military unit was decimated during a mission that officially never occurred. She survived by adapting, improvising, and demonstrating tactical intelligence that attracted attention from programs so secret they recruited by observing rather than advertising. Her training took place in facilities that moved frequently, taught by instructors whose identities were hidden, preparing her for missions where failure meant death and success meant invisibility. Her faded jacket survived operations across 3 continents, each stain and tear representing classified victories that kept American interests secure. Valkyrie operates between official military structure and complete independence, using Camp Meridian for logistical support while maintaining cover identities that allow her to work in hostile territories where official military presence would create international incidents. Her equipment requests appear routine, but support missions that require specialized gear for environments and situations that conventional forces never encounter. She lives without permanent address relationships or identity beyond what each mission requires, sacrificing normal life for service that protects freedoms she can't openly enjoy. Despite her unremarkable appearance, Valkyrie possesses capabilities that exceed most special operations personnel. She can assume any identity, convincingly operate indefinitely without support, and eliminate threats while maintaining plausible deniability for her actions. Her greatest strength is invisibility. Enemies don't recognize threats until too late, allies don't realize they've been protected, and governments can deny knowledge of her existence while benefiting from her results. Her faded jacket represents not just personal history, but operational security that conceals extraordinary service behind ordinary appearance that keeps her alive and effective. Valkyrie must maintain her operational security while accessing equipment and support from military personnel who lack clearance to understand her true role or mission's requirements. Her challenge is appearing unremarkable enough to avoid attention while obtaining resources necessary for classified operations. The primary obstacle is compartmentalized security that prevents most Camp Meridian personnel from recognizing or supporting operatives like her, creating situations where heroes must endure mockery and disrespect from colleagues who can't be told why such treatment is inappropriate and dangerous. The stakes involve both operational security and mission success. Exposure could compromise ongoing operations and endanger other operatives, but inadequate support could result in mission failure with consequences affecting national security. Valkyrie must balance maintaining her cover with obtaining necessary resources from people who see only her unremarkable appearance. This conflict represents the challenge facing deep cover operatives who sacrifice recognition and respect to serve missions too sensitive for conventional military acknowledgement or support. Valkyrie's mission briefing came through encrypted channels that bypassed normal military communication networks. Asset extraction from hostile territory requires immediate deployment with specialized equipment package. Mission critical for ongoing operations affecting multiple theaters. The assignment represented typical deep cover work: insert into foreign territory, locate and extract high-value intelligence asset whose capture would compromise multiple ongoing operations and eliminate threats without creating evidence of American involvement. Success required equipment that conventional military suppliers couldn't provide through normal channels. Camp Meridian's classified supply depot contained specialized gear that existed in procurement gray areas, equipment that worked but couldn't be officially acknowledged, weapons that were effective but diplomatically sensitive, and technology that provided operational advantages while maintaining plausible deniability. Standard military gear gets you killed in this work, Valkyrie reminded herself while preparing her equipment list. Everything has to look civilian or foreign military while performing better than anything our enemies expect. The mission timing was critical. The asset's location was known, but temporary, hostile forces were increasing security, and international diplomatic pressures required complete deniability if the operation was discovered. Valkyrie needed to access Camp Meridian's resources quickly and quietly without attracting attention that might compromise operational security. Valkyrie's preparation for Camp Meridian equipment pickup required balancing operational security with access needs that couldn't be easily explained to personnel without proper clearance. Her cover story, routine training exercise equipment request, provided legitimate reason for accessing classified supplies without revealing mission parameters. Her approach emphasized appearing unremarkable civilian clothes that could pass anywhere behavior that suggested routine military personnel rather than elite operative and equipment requests that seemed standard rather than specialized for classified operations requiring complete deniability. Most critically, Valkyrie prepared for potential security challenges from base personnel who might question her access or equipment requests without understanding the classified authorities that authorized her presence and mission support. Her credentials existed in systems that most personnel couldn't access or verify. She researched Camp Meridian's current security protocols, personnel assignments, and command structure to identify potential complications or support opportunities that might affect her equipment acquisition timeline and operational security requirements. Valkyrie also prepared contingency plans if her cover was compromised or if equipment access was denied through normal channels, including alternative supply sources and mission modification options that would enable operation success despite logistical challenges. Her psychological preparation included managing frustration with security protocols that protected her identity while creating barriers to obtaining equipment necessary for missions that protected the same people who couldn't be told why their cooperation was essential for national security. Valkyrie approached Camp Meridian supply depot using tradecraft that made her presence seem routine rather than significant timing, that avoided peak activity periods, entry routes that minimized exposure to unnecessary personnel and behavior that suggested familiar rather than suspicious activity. Supply Sergeant Martinez processed her equipment request, professionally recognizing her access codes without questioning their source or significance. Standard training package, some specialized items. He noted while pulling gear that existed in inventory gray areas between acknowledged and classified. The transaction proceeded smoothly until 3 young captains entered the depot for their own equipment needs, immediately focusing on Valkyrie's faded military jacket with obvious amusement rather than respect. Captain Morrison led their group with confidence that suggested no understanding of classified operations or personnel who might be present. "Look at that ancient gear," Morrison commented loudly to his colleagues, Captains Davis and Wright, all recent graduates from conventional military programs who equated new equipment with professional competence. Their mockery revealed inexperience with operations where appearing unremarkable was more valuable than looking impressive. Valkyrie maintained her cover by ignoring their comments while completing her equipment checkout, using their dismissive attitude as confirmation that her operational security was intact despite their unprofessional behavior. Captain Morrison's mockery escalated from subtle comments to direct confrontation as he questioned Valkyrie's presence and equipment access without understanding that her clearance levels exceeded his by classifications he wasn't authorized to know existed. "That jacket looks like it belongs in a military museum," Morrison announced, while his colleagues laughed, not recognizing that the gear they mocked had survived operations in environments where their pristine uniforms would have gotten everyone killed. Valkyrie maintained her cover by appearing to ignore their harassment while continuing her equipment checkout, using their ignorance as operational security confirmation. Captain Davis joined the harassment by questioning whether Valkyrie belonged on a military installation, suggesting she might be lost civilian who'd wandered into restricted areas. "Security should probably escort her out," Davis said with authority that revealed complete misunderstanding of classified operations and personnel who operated outside normal military protocols. Their assumption that professional appearance required new equipment and official recognition, demonstrated dangerous ignorance about deep cover operatives whose effectiveness depended on looking unremarkable rather than impressive. Valkyrie's tactical assessment noted their inexperience while maintaining operational security through continued appearance of civilian normalcy. Captain Wright escalated to direct challenge when he demanded to see Valkyrie's authorization for accessing specialized equipment that his clearance level couldn't verify or understand. Those items require special authorization. Wright declared not knowing that Valkyrie's credentials existed in systems his rank couldn't access and programs his career would never encounter. Their collective harassment created security situation where maintaining cover required appearing submissive to officers whose military experience was limited to conventional operations that bore no resemblance to classified missions where appearance-based assumptions could compromise operational effectiveness and personnel safety. The confrontation attracted attention from other depot personnel who began observing the interaction between the three captains and the unremarkable woman they were harassing, creating witness situation that tested Valkyrie's cover maintenance while the officers demonstrated their ignorance about classified operations. Sergeant Martinez attempted diplomatic intervention. Her paperwork checks out, sirs. No problems with the equipment request. But his support carried less authority than the captain's rank, creating hierarchical pressure that enabled their continued harassment despite his professional assessment of the situation. Other personnel in the depot began choosing sides based on rank rather than evidence, with junior enlisted supporting Martinez's professional judgment, while mid-level officers deferred to the captain's apparent authority, creating social dynamics that favored harassment over professional courtesy. The captain's collective behavior created hostile environment that violated military courtesy standards while demonstrating dangerous assumptions about operational security and personnel, whose appearance didn't match their expectations about military competence and authorization levels. Base security protocols remained unaware of the developing situation because the harassment appeared to be routine military personnel interaction rather than potential compromise of classified operations by officers whose ignorance posed operational security risks they couldn't understand. Facing systematic harassment while maintaining operational security tested every aspect of Valkyrie's deep cover training about preserving mission integrity despite personal provocation and professional disrespect from colleagues who benefited from her protection without knowing it. The captain's mockery forced Valkyrie to balance tactical responses with cover maintenance, using their ignorance as confirmation that her operational security was working while managing the frustration of being judged by people whose military experience didn't qualify them to understand classified operations. Her training emphasized mission success over personal dignity, and she applied those lessons to maintain cover, despite harassment that revealed how little conventional military officers understood about unconventional operations and personnel who served outside normal recognition structures. The confrontation crystallized her understanding of deep cover isolation. She protected people who couldn't know they were being protected, served with colleagues who couldn't recognize her service, and endured disrespect from officers whose safety depended on operations they couldn't acknowledge or appreciate. Valkyrie's operational identity, strengthened under pressure, reminding her that effectiveness came from invisibility rather than recognition, and that mission success mattered more than personal respect from officers whose careers would never require the sacrifices that deep cover operations demanded from their personnel. As the harassment intensified, the captain's behavior began attracting command attention that threatened to compromise Valkyrie's operational security while demonstrating their complete ignorance about classified personnel and operations that existed at Camp Meridian. Morrison's increasingly aggressive questioning about Valkyrie's authorization and equipment access created potential security investigation that could expose her cover identity to personnel without appropriate clearance, compromising ongoing missions and other operatives who depended on compartmentalized security. The situation escalated beyond personal harassment to operational security risk, as the captain's demands for verification and identification threatened to trigger administrative reviews that could expose classified programs and personnel to unauthorized disclosure. Valkyrie's cover story had limits that the captain's persistent harassment was approaching, creating decision point where maintaining operational security might require responses that would reveal capabilities inconsistent with her civilian appearance and cover identity. The convergence of rank-based harassment, operational security requirements, and mission timeline pressures created perfect storm where routine equipment pickup was becoming classified operations exposure risk that could compromise multiple ongoing missions and personnel whose safety depended on maintaining anonymity and operational security. Captain Morrison's harassment reached its climax when he demanded that depot security detain Valkyrie for unauthorized access to military equipment and suspicious behavior on classified installation, creating exactly the kind of administrative investigation that could expose her deep cover identity and compromise ongoing operations. "This woman has no legitimate reason to be here," Morrison declared with authority that revealed complete ignorance about classified operations and personnel whose presence he wasn't cleared to understand or question. His demand for formal security intervention threatened to trigger background investigations that would expose programs and missions requiring complete deniability. Captain Davis supported the escalation. "Her equipment requests are suspicious, and she can't provide adequate identification for her access level. Their collective ignorance about deep cover operations created operational security crisis that Valkyrie couldn't resolve without revealing capabilities that would compromise her cover and endanger other operatives." Wright added final pressure. "Base security needs to verify her authorization and investigate how she obtained access to specialized equipment." Their demand for official investigation represented exactly the kind of exposure that deep cover operations were designed to prevent and that could compromise national security interests. Valkyrie faced impossible choice: submit to investigation that would expose her classified identity and compromise ongoing missions, or reveal capabilities that would end her operational effectiveness while demonstrating exactly why the captain's harassment was dangerous to national security operations they couldn't understand. The situation had escalated beyond personal harassment to operational security crisis that threatened to expose classified programs and personnel through administrative processes that the captain's ignorance had triggered without understanding the consequences of their actions. Standing in Camp Meridian's supply depot with 3 captains demanding her detention and investigation, Valkyrie faced the fundamental choice that defined deep cover operations: maintain cover despite personal cost or reveal identity to resolve immediate crisis while compromising long-term operational effectiveness. The safe choice was submission, allow security investigation trust that her handlers could manage exposure without compromising ongoing operations, and accept that her cover identity might be burned to resolve situation created by officers who couldn't understand what they were threatening. But Valkyrie realized that exposing her identity would compromise not just her own operations, but other deep cover operatives who relied on compartmentalized security, that the captain's investigation would breach through administrative processes they couldn't control or contain. If I reveal myself, I compromise every classified operation these idiots can't understand, Valkyrie calculated, while the captains increased their demands for official intervention. But if I maintain cover, they might trigger investigations that expose even more than my individual identity. Her decision crystallized around operational priorities. Deep cover missions required operatives who could sacrifice personal recognition and safety for mission success and security of programs that protected national interests through methods that couldn't be acknowledged. The ultimate stakes transcended her personal situation, whether deep cover operations could maintain necessary security in environments where conventional military officers lacked understanding about classified programs, and personnel whose effectiveness depended on invisibility that command authority could accidentally compromise. Valkyrie chose to maintain cover while trusting that command structure existed to protect classified operations from exactly the kind of well-intentioned ignorance that the captains were demonstrating through their harassment and investigation demands. Valkyrie made the choice that epitomized deep cover operations maintain operational security, regardless of personal cost, trusting that systems existed to protect classified programs from exposure by personnel who lacked appropriate clearance or understanding. "Investigate away," she told the captains with calm that suggested either complete innocence or dangerous confidence they couldn't interpret correctly. "My authorization exists at levels you can't access for reasons you're not cleared to understand." Her response created cognitive dissonance for the captains who expected either submission or defensive explanations, not calm acceptance that suggested authority beyond their comprehension or challenge to investigate what they couldn't understand. But before the situation could escalate further, General Hawthorne entered the supply depot for his scheduled inspection, immediately focusing on Valkyrie with recognition that transformed the entire dynamic from harassment investigation to command intervention. "LRA Valkyrie," General Hawthorne said quietly, using her operational designation rather than any name the captains would recognize. His acknowledgement created immediate silence as everyone realized they were witnessing command-level recognition of someone whose identity and authority exceeded their understanding. The general's presence transformed harassment into potential career-ending mistake for three captains who had just demonstrated their ignorance about classified operations and personnel. General Hawthorne's recognition of Valkyrie shifted the entire depot's atmosphere as his command presence and obvious knowledge of her identity forced everyone to reassess what they thought they understood about the situation and the unremarkable woman the captains had been harassing. LRA Valkyrie mission preparation proceeding according to schedule. Hawthorne asked with professional courtesy that demonstrated respect and recognition for her operational status and authority that the captains couldn't comprehend or challenge. His interaction revealed command-level awareness of classified operations that made the captain's harassment appear not just inappropriate, but potentially career-damaging ignorance about personnel and programs they weren't qualified to understand or question. Valkyrie's response maintained operational security while acknowledging command recognition. Equipment acquisition complete, sir. Ready for deployment as scheduled. Her professional military bearing emerged for the first time, revealing competence and authority that her cover had concealed. The exchange demonstrated the proper relationship between command authority and deep cover operations, where recognition existed at appropriate levels without compromising operational security or exposing personnel to unnecessary scrutiny from those lacking proper clearance. Hawthorne's presence provided the protection and recognition that Valkyrie's service deserved while maintaining the security protocols that kept her operations effective and her identity protected from unauthorized disclosure. The captains faced immediate realization that their harassment target was someone with command-level recognition and operational authority that exceeded their understanding, creating professional crisis that could affect their military careers and security clearances. Morrison attempted damage control. General, we were conducting security verification as required by base protocols. But his explanation revealed ignorance about classified operations and personnel whose presence he wasn't authorized to question or investigate. Hawthorne's response was measured but pointed. Captain Morrison, LRA Valkyrie, operates under authorities that exceed your clearance level and knowledge. Your security verification was harassment of classified personnel. The general's correction created immediate tension as the captains realized they had potentially compromised operational security through ignorance about deep cover operations and personnel whose effectiveness depended on anonymity they had just threatened to expose. Davis and Wright exchanged uncomfortable glances as they understood that their participation in harassment might have professional consequences they hadn't anticipated when they joined Morrison's ignorant assumptions about Valkyrie's authorization and presence. The depot fell silent as personnel realized they were witnessing command intervention in what they had thought was routine harassment, but was actually potential compromise of classified operations by officers who lacked appropriate understanding. General Hawthorne's detailed interaction with Valkyrie revealed the depth of his knowledge about her operations and the personal significance of her service that made the captain's harassment not just inappropriate, but deeply offensive to someone who understood her true contributions. Valkyrie, your mission parameters include equipment specifications that these officers couldn't understand even if they had proper clearance. Hawthorne explained while maintaining operational security through careful language that acknowledged her authority without exposing mission details. His professional respect demonstrated proper command recognition of deep cover operatives, while educating the captains about their ignorance regarding classified personnel and operations that existed at Camp Meridian without their knowledge or authorization to interfere. The general's bearing and obvious knowledge created powerful contrast between command understanding of classified operations and junior officer ignorance about programs and personnel whose service required recognition from appropriate authority levels rather than conventional military appreciation. The situation became more complex when Hawthorne began revealing personal connections to Valkyrie's service that transformed abstract operational recognition into deeply personal gratitude that the captains couldn't understand or appreciate. 3 years ago, classified Operation Hostile Territory, Hawthorne began his voice carrying emotion that indicated personal rather than professional significance. Asset extraction that saved multiple lives, including someone very important to me. Valkyrie maintained operational security through modest response. Standard mission parameters, sir. Successful completion as required. But Hawthorne's growing emotional reaction suggested that her service had personal meaning beyond professional accomplishment. The captains watched with growing realization that they had harassed someone whose service had personal significance for their commanding officer, creating potential career consequences they hadn't anticipated when they assumed authority to question her presence and authorization. Morrison attempted further damage control. "General, we didn't know about any classified operations or special authorization." But his explanation only reinforced their ignorance about personnel and programs they had tried to investigate without proper clearance or understanding. The depot atmosphere grew more tense as personnel realized they were witnessing something more significant than routine command intervention in harassment complaint. The climactic revelation came when General Hawthorne disclosed that Valkyrie's classified operation had saved his son's life during a mission that officially never occurred, transforming her service from abstract accomplishment into deeply personal family salvation. The asset she extracted was my son, Lieutenant James Hawthorne, captured during intelligence-gathering mission behind enemy lines. The general revealed with emotion that silenced the entire depot. Valkyrie penetrated hostile territory, eliminated threats, and brought him home when conventional rescue was impossible. The personal testimony created immediate transformation in how everyone present viewed both Valkyrie's service and the captain's harassment of someone whose heroism had saved their commanding officer's family member through operations they couldn't understand or appreciate. Valkyrie's response maintained her operational humility. "Mission accomplished as assigned, sir. No special recognition required." But Hawthorne corrected her understanding. "Special recognition is exactly what this service requires, even if it can't be publicly acknowledged." The depot's atmosphere shifted completely as personnel realized they had witnessed harassment of someone whose classified service had directly protected their commanding officer's family through operations requiring courage and capability that conventional military experience couldn't provide or recognize. Hawthorne's personal gratitude provided educational moment about deep cover operations value and the heroes who served without recognition to protect people and interests that couldn't be publicly acknowledged. General Hawthorne's personal testimony created immediate transformation in how Camp Meridian personnel viewed deep cover operatives and the respect they deserved for service that required recognition from those with appropriate clearance and understanding. His presentation of a Shadow Star Medal, recognition for classified operations that couldn't be publicly acknowledged, provided formal honor for Valkyrie's service while maintaining operational security protocols that protected ongoing missions and personnel. This recognition represents service that saved my son's life and numerous other operations that keep America safe through methods that can't be officially acknowledged, Hawthorne announced while pinning the medal on Valkyrie's faded jacket. The ceremony transformed her appearance from unprofessional to honored, demonstrating that operational effectiveness had nothing to do with looking impressive and everything to do with achieving mission success under impossible conditions. The captains faced complete reversal of their assumptions, as someone they had harassed for appearing unprofessional received formal recognition for service that exceeded their understanding and capabilities. Hawthorne's recognition established new protocols for respecting deep cover personnel and the importance of understanding that conventional military appearance standards didn't apply to operatives whose effectiveness depended on looking unremarkable rather than impressive. The Shadow Star presentation transformed Valkyrie from harassed outsider to honored operative as depot personnel learned about classified service that protected national interest through operations they couldn't understand but should respect. The captains faced mandatory security training about classified operations and personnel recognition, learning that their harassment could have compromised national security through ignorance about deep cover operatives and programs requiring operational security. Most importantly, Valkyrie received recognition for service that required secrecy while maintaining the operational security that kept her effective for future missions requiring invisibility and deniability. General Hawthorne's recognition of Valkyrie created immediate policy changes at Camp Meridian regarding interaction protocols with personnel whose appearance or behavior might not conform to conventional military standards, but who possessed classified operational authority requiring respect rather than harassment. The three captains faced intensive security education about deep cover operations, compartmentalized clearances, and the dangers of assuming authority to investigate personnel whose missions they couldn't understand. Their ignorance nearly compromised operational security through well-intentioned but dangerous harassment. Valkyrie's Shadow Star recognition established precedent for honoring classified service while maintaining operational security, creating formal acknowledgement systems for deep cover operatives whose heroism required recognition from appropriate authority levels. Camp Meridian implemented new protocols for supporting classified personnel while maintaining their operational security, ensuring that cover identities were protected rather than challenged by military personnel lacking appropriate clearance to understand specialized operations and authority structures. 2 years later, Valkyrie's recognition influenced military policy for supporting deep cover operations throughout the defense establishment, creating protocols that balanced operational security with appropriate recognition and support for personnel whose service required anonymity but deserved honor. Training programs for conventional military officers included education about classified operations and personnel preventing harassment based on appearance or behavior that might seem unprofessional but actually represented necessary operational security for effective mission completion. The Shadow Star recognition system expanded to acknowledge other deep cover operatives whose service couldn't be publicly honored but deserved formal recognition from command authority that understood their contributions to national security. International intelligence cooperation improved as allied nations adopted similar recognition protocols for their own deep cover personnel, creating better support systems for operatives whose effectiveness depended on invisibility, but whose service required appropriate acknowledgement. Military leadership development programs incorporated lessons from Valkyrie's experienced teaching officers about the importance of understanding classified operations and respecting personnel whose service might not conform to conventional expectations, but provided irreplaceable national security capabilities. Valkyrie evolved from completely anonymous operative to someone whose service was appropriately recognized within classified systems while maintaining the operational security necessary for continued effectiveness in deep cover missions. Her Shadow Star recognition provided personal validation for service that required sacrificing normal recognition and relationships for missions that protected people who couldn't know they were being protected. Recognition doesn't require publicity. Valkyrie often reflects during classified briefings. Honor comes from service completion, not public acknowledgement, but appropriate recognition from those who understand the cost makes the sacrifice meaningful. Valkyrie's story proves that true service often requires invisibility rather than recognition, and that the most important heroes are those whose contributions can't be publicly acknowledged, but deserve respect from those with appropriate authority to understand their sacrifice and effectiveness. Today, Valkyrie continues her classified operations with the knowledge that her service is appropriately recognized within systems that can honor her contributions while maintaining the operational security essential for mission success. Her Shadow Star medal remains hidden beneath civilian clothes during operations, but its significance provides personal validation for service that requires sacrificing normal recognition for missions that protect freedoms she can't openly enjoy. Camp Meridian's improved protocols ensure that other deep cover operatives receive appropriate support without compromising their operational effectiveness, while the 3 captains who once harassed her now teach other officers about the importance of respecting personnel whose service they might not understand but should never question. General Hawthorne's recognition that day established precedent for honoring classified service, appropriately proving that heroes who serve in shadows deserve recognition from those qualified to understand their contributions, even when that recognition must remain as invisible as the operations they complete. The supply depot, where she was nearly detained, now serves as a reminder that appearance-based judgments can compromise national security when they target the very people whose invisibility keeps America safe from threats that conventional military forces never encounter.